Man, this boat froze my ass off at that waterfall. It was pretty cold. The snow levels was a lot farther down, and I fished this particular river. I don't know. I think I fished 4 different spots, and then I drove up the valley and went to the head to that waterfall. Got down in there, but the whole time you're fishing, it's like straight 90-degree rain coming straight at your face, and all that wind from that waterfall. There's waterfall water coming at you the entire time. I stuck it up for a few hours. I caught a handful of trout, no steelhead. But oh man, I was getting so frickin' cold by the end of it. That's the only reason I quit, was because I was getting so frickin' cold. But anyway, so stopped at the side of this lake on the way home. I thought about paddling across and hiking up into that mature first growth at the top of that mountain, hunting sometime maybe. Looks kind of juicy. I don't know what I am. I think I'm about 50 kilometers, 60 kilometers from home right now. A lot going on in the world, man. I'm getting a lot of emails from a lot of different people. I'll tell you what, if I could ever say anything for certain right now, is that every single thing they feed to us on mainstream is not what it seems. They're never, ever feeding us the truth when it comes to serious global episodes. I'll tell you what, it's pretty sad. But anyway, try to bite my lip. Hopefully this wind isn't licking this camera too much. Hey Steve, D from Northern Utah here. First off, let me thank you and everyone at the round table and at the Club of No Return. Here comes the wind. Not crazy there wasn't any wind here. That's going to be too much, isn't it? That camera's too sensitive to the wind. We'll see. Maybe, maybe not. Alright, I think it's just a breeze. Let's try this again. Hey Steve, D from Northern Utah here. First off, let me thank you and everyone at the round table and the Club of No Return. Sharing my encounters has lifted a huge weight off my heart and brought some very troubling questions. If you recall, my first encounter, my brother and I were hunting mule deer. He had got one and we drug it out to the bottom of Black Canyon. I was home on leave for the hunt. Being in the Army, as you probably know, they basically brainwash you to think you are 10 feet tall and bulletproof. As I told you, we were both armed with rifles and sidearms. Anyway, the big guy stepped out. We were both aiming at him and ready to go if shit got deep. And as you know, it never. And he just stared at us as we did him. Then he basically, with a gesture of his hand, told us to go. And we did. We never talked about it, as my brother died a couple months later. Sorry to hear about that. So for all these years, I've had this nagging question. Did he know there was something not right about my brother? There's something I don't talk about with... This is something I don't talk about with anyone, but I'm pretty sure my brother took his own life. I hate hearing that. So after all these years and listening to the things you and others have said about kind of mind speaking to them, i.e. I am not here to harm you, I'm here hunting, I won't bother you, so don't bother me. I decided after all these years it was time to go back there this year. I drove to the top of Black Canyon, got out, walked the edge of the rimrock, stood there and spoke out loud. I know you're there. You probably won't remember me, but I was here years ago with my brother. You showed yourself to us at the bottom of the canyon. I'll be there this evening if you remember me. So that evening I walked a half a mile in where we were years ago, as best I could remember. I sat down and started reflecting on my brother. About 15 minutes later, I noticed that the place had gone silent like I remembered before. I got up and asked, "You remember me?" There was 3 knocks on a tree. Holy shit. I said, "I'm not here to harm you or bother you, and I need to ask you a question." Silence. So I ask, when we were last here, It's just a couple of months before my brother's passing. Did you know then there was something amiss with him? Nothing, just silence. A couple minutes later, I turned to leave, took 3 to 4 steps, when in my head I heard, "Yes, we knew." And your brother was the happiest he had been that day. Now this happened this past weekend deer season. I am very grateful to you and those who share their experiences, for it truly gave me the courage to see this out. I'm sure we as humans, if we paid attention, could learn and probably retrieve a lot of the abilities we have lost. Thanks again for helping an old guy find the courage to do this. Again, watch your 6. Keep your head on a swivel. And whenever possible, let some of us old rebels ruffle the feathers. Hell, us old vets are pissed off and looking for something to raise hell about. Let us have your 6. All the best to you and yours, my friend. And a quick note from me. All right, man, I got you. And I will, if I can, I will. And that's quite the email, man. That's quite the frickin' email, right? It's an interesting experience you just shared with us. There's some things going on, isn't there? There's some things going on. I was thinking about yesterday. Edgar emailed me back again. A couple other people emailed me back again that I've been conversing with back and forth for a while now. And one thing I think we all should probably just admit to ourselves right off the bat is the fact that there is some things going on that we as a human being, possibly we're just a simple human being, we just can't wrap our heads around it. Around various items. We just can't. We can't even, for a lot of things that are going on that are somewhat getting slapped into our faces, like we can't even make up an excuse for what it is we're experiencing or slightly knowing about or noticing or seeing or hearing about. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing to experience, of that absolute just not being able to wrap your head around something. It's frustrating for me. It's very frustrating. Anyway, thanks for saying that, man. You got any more knowledge coming up in the future and you think it'll help somebody, you get it into us, all right? Now I'm wearing my glasses on the outside of the tube because Sarah hates that. What do we got? This is titled Mind Speak. Hi Steve, a while back I sent you a write-up of when my wife and I surprised one of those beings along the shore of an Adirondack lake located in northern New York State. And I mentioned that I had been zapped. I use that term for lack of a better one. It occurred a few hours after a sighting and it was in the same general area. After listening to additional stories, I now need to change my appraisal of what I felt. We were eating a picnic supper on an island, and all of a sudden I got up and told my wife we had to leave. Now. I've been an outdoorsman for over 40 years, and I've never felt that way before. What I really felt was that something was communicating to me in my mind, and it said, "You need to go now," multiple times. Obviously, we got up, jumped in the boat, and left. I never felt fear, just that we had to leave now. So maybe that was the mind speak that is currently a topic. Who knows? Anyways, another story to add to all the knowledge you share. Regards, Bob Benway. And then I found, Bob, I searched and I found your other email, and I got it right here right away too, okay? So here we go. And this is titled Book and Story. Hi, Steve. Been watching videos for a while now and recently bought your book. Gave it a 5-star rating on Amazon, by the way. Thanks for that. There's another one coming out which is going to be much more detailed and a little bigger soon, okay, everyone? Below is a story of an event my wife and I had in northern New York a few years ago. Maybe you can include it in book number 3. Keep up the good work. Real stories, real people. Here's a report from the Adirondack mountains in New York State. I was going to kick out of doing that because out of all the mispronunciations I do across the planet, it's you New Yorkers that drives you insane if I don't pronounce it the correct way. I almost want to mispronounce it just to stick it to you guys for fun. Anyway, that'll never go away, will it? Not one. I've been outdoorsman, hunting and fishing and camping and hiking since the early 70s. I've seen every type of game known in the state. It occurred on a sunny June 17th, 2015 day around mid-afternoon while we were boating along the eastern shore of Lake George, New York. Been there, just above the Narrows. We were about 140 yards away from the shore when the sighting occurred. The shoreline of this section of the lake is state property and the part of the Forever Wild section of the Adirondacks. There are many square miles of wilderness here, and this location is only about 8 miles from the locally famous Whitehall, New York sightings in '76. We're motoring in our 19-foot inboard-outboard boat northeast in a narrow channel between some islands and the mainland. Our intended goal was a small single-site camping island a short distance away. We're traveling about 5 miles per hour, slightly above idling speed. Engine RPM would be approximately 1,000. As we clear the channel, there's a bay on our starboard right side. Since I'm always scanning the water side to side looking for boat traffic, I was looking east into the bay and I noticed some movement close to the shoreline. It seemed that whatever it was we caught it by surprise as we cleared a point of land. I then got my wife's attention as she looked in that direction and also saw it. My view was of a very large, glossy black animate being that was squatted down by the water and seemed to quickly raise an arm from its side to a horizontal position, rose up, then turned away and moved back and to the side and behind a nearby clump of coniferous trees. I couldn't believe how fast it moved. I then spun the boat around for a better view. Meanwhile, my wife was watching it. Her impression was that it was large, dark, and upright, and didn't move like an animal. Her view was slightly restricted by the trees that it was hiding behind, but she did notice that the being was swaying from side to side. The only known animal that is large and black out here in the Adirondacks is the black bear, and we both strongly know it wasn't a bear. It had shoulders. Bears don't. It was an observation of a very short duration, but long enough to impress us. Unfortunately, we can't provide any accurate dimensions or descriptions of any physical details, but even though we're not sure of what it was, we're sure of what it was not. We're used to seeing people on the shore, and this being was far larger than any human. We had cameras and binoculars on board, but we were trying to process what we saw. I never thought to grab either of them. It happens that fast. We then continued on to the island, which is about 200 yards from the sighting, and only about 20 feet from the mainland, and chatted a bit about what we just saw. Eventually we got the charcoal grill fired up and proceeded to cook a meal. We do this on a regular basis on the islands of the lake. As we were eating, and all of a sudden, I had a strong feeling to leave now. I shared that with my wife, and we quickly finished our meal, loaded our gear, back in the boat, and left. Or as some may say, got the hell out of Dodge. I was not afraid, mind you, but something strongly came over me, and I knew we had to get out of there now. I've never had the type of experience on the lake or anywhere else before, and I'm not sure if the two events are related, but I suspect they are. Something wanted us to go away, and go away now. Since then, I've had heightened awareness of their presence in the woods, and have found dozens of tree breaks, and have recorded howls, wood knocks, and their almost accurate barred owl calls. On one occasion, we were hiking in the fall. We noted a tree break at our destination and made a big deal about it. You could only imagine our surprise as we returned down the same trail that something had bent and splintered a 4-inch living hardwood right over the trail like an arc. It was not that way on our way up. We did not feel afraid, but something was clearly communicating to us that it was the baddest thing around. We both have had over 40 years of outdoors experience each and are very familiar with the Adirondack wildlife. My wife is a retired science teacher, and I'm a retired medical device manufacturing engineer. Oh yeah, now I give a damn if some folks don't believe this. We know what we saw. We both spent a lot of time in the outdoors. Will not be second guessed by some armchair academics. Regards, Bob Benway. Gotcha, Bob. Thanks for that, man. You know what you saw. We know what you saw. And if you didn't see it, you wouldn't went out of your way to email us through this YouTube channel, would you? Lots of people have surprised him from a boat, that's for sure, especially on BC on the ocean as well. Just a quick note, you guys. Sometimes when I'm using this camera, my voice will go, the audio will cut and come back in a 2-second period or something. What it is that camera records in a certain file size, and then it flips onto a next file. And when you come to the end of that recording file, and it keeps recording, normally these cameras don't screw up the audio when it clips to that next file. But the last 1 second at the end of the file, it kills the audio before it's going to the next one. Just so you know. It's kind of a pain in the ass. Fairly busy logging road right up there. But I wanted to use this camera with this lake background, so possibly get a better look at the other side of the lake behind me while I'm reading, right? I don't think the GoPro pulls that off as well as one of these. Alright, what's this one? This is titled Sorrowful Sound. Howdy, Steve. I'll keep this short. A few years ago, I was elk hunting with 2 friends in northeast Oregon. We were hunting a ridge. One guy went down one draw, and we went down another. About halfway down, we heard what started as a deep roar and gradually ended in a soul-piercing, high-pitched scream. My buddy, an old miner, turned to me and said, "What the F was that?" It was supernaturally loud and lasted about 5 seconds. It didn't generate any fear or dread in me, just sorrow. I remember thinking, I can't relate to that level of pain. When we met up with our friend in the other draw, he had heard it too. I don't know if there's any connection, but last year I lost 2 of my sons in a tragic accident. Oh my gosh, that sucks. So sorry to hear that. Now I can relate to that sound. I've listened to all the Bigfoot recordings I can find and have yet to hear one to match what I heard that day. I appreciate what you're doing, Kurt. All right, Kurt, thanks for that. Sorry to hear that sad news, man. Not much I can say to that one. But I guess, yeah, like, what do you say? I mean, we were all going to die. We all get our turns. I'm convinced this lifetime doesn't end. I am convinced 110%. Not a chance. This is it. It's just, yeah, I won't go on about the death topic. Let's read this one. Titled Orb Encounter with Bigfoot Sightings. Steve, my name is Mark Chick from Missouri. When I was 12, I went to Salem, Oregon to see my grandpa and go salmon fishing along the coast. At the age of 12, on our way to the harbor to go fishing at 5 a.m., driving along the ocean, this thing ran across the road in front of our station wagon. We had to slam on the brakes to miss it. We watched as it jumped over fallen redwoods like pogo sticks running up the mountainside. You know how big redwoods are? I couldn't believe what I was watching. My grandma said that's a Sasquatch. She knew what they were living in Oregon her entire life. We are from the Midwest, Missouri, so I thought they were just in Oregon. After fishing, we went to her house and I wouldn't go in the woods there at all. When I came home to Missouri and told friends in my scout troop, they laughed at me and called me Bigfoot from then on. I was 12 and now I'm 57. Fast forward to the fall deer bow season of '89. I was in a tree waiting for a deer to come by. I seen a light going in and out of the trees about 5 to 8 feet off the ground. At first I thought it was flashlights and a couple of guys walking. As I kept my eyes on it, this orb got closer and closer. All of a sudden, I woke up walking 5 miles from that tree down a gravel road where a car about ran me over honking. The guy yelled, "What the F were you doing at 11 o'clock at night walking on my road with a bow and a gun?" I carried a .357 always as a sidearm, and now it was fall, got dark at 5:20. This was now 11 o'clock at night, and I have no idea where those 5 hours and 30 minutes went. I was not on drugs or drinking. I did not do that shit when I hunt. All this orb action now makes me wonder. To top that one off, 4 weeks ago I walked with my dog, and he started growling. I turned and looked up, and an orb about the size of a basketball was going side to side. I'll add a photo of it. It came 15 feet above my head, and I pissed my pants running in the house to grab a 12 gauge. I wonder what they're wanting from me. I'm a nobody. I guess crazy as they all say I am. Thanks, Steve. I've watched your show since day one. Take care of my there's a couple typos. Take care of my outdoors friend. We got to stick together. Yes, we do, and that's what we're doing, man. We're all sticking together. I'll have to do a search. Hopefully, I'll remember to do a search on your email and try to find the picture because there's no picture attached to this. All right. People losing time. That's unsettling. Very, very unsettling. Just like Edgar lost time, and numerous other people have lost time and couldn't explain what happened. I'm not looking forward to that if it's ever going to happen to me, I'll tell you what. Especially since I'm out here by myself 90% of the time. That's very unsettling. I wonder what's going on, right? Be safe out there, man. Sasquatch encounter, Alberta. Kids left terrified. Hi, Steve. I absolutely love your channel and your support as well as messaging on this topic. It's fantastic that you're giving people a vehicle to share their experiences and get the truth out there. The reality is this. There's definitely something out there, and I cannot explain what I saw as an 8-year-old child in the late 70s, but it forever has creeped me out about being in the woods. I have friends that are avid hunters here in BC, and I think you may know some of my friends. When they head out, I am always, yay, good for you, but left feeling uneasy. Here's my story. When I was 7 or 8 years old, my parents divorced. My dad ended up building my parents' dream home deep in the woods of Fort Assiniboine, Alberta, near Swan Hills, Alberta. My mom and I lived in Barhead, about an hour or so away. The dream home was in the woods. The deck was built onto a large hillside with forest all around. The main living room area of the house faced the hill and the Assiniboine River, which had beautiful views and was all glass. It was the main floor where decks all around the house on this level circled the kitchen, living room, and my bedroom. This detail is important, so bear with the floor plan. LOL. We used to visit my dad every second weekend or so as part of the divorce agreement, and this is a late fall weekend visit. My dad was told there were a number of grizzly bears in the area recently. We had horses as well as chickens on this property. We always woke up to bear tracks in the lower driveway and yard, so we were fairly bear aware and cautious. Here's the encounter. It was about 11:30 at night. Everyone had gone to bed. I remember hearing CTV News on at 11, then I fell asleep. A short while later, I could hear very loud banging, thumping, and rustling of trees at the front room large glass windows. The banging got louder, and so I got out of bed. I kid you not. The next part sounds like a movie, but it was very real, I assure you. I went down the hall, and I was about 15 feet or so back from the large open concept living room and could see something very large and hunched over on the deck at the window. My dad has his bedroom in an open loft area above the living room, and he came out onto the balcony above the living room. He hit the lights to light up the area on the balcony, and I swear to God, Steve, what stood up from a crouched position was not a bear. It just wasn't. I know what a bear looks like, and this was no bear. It was very, very tall, covered in hair, but did not have bear paws when it stood and bounced just like a human. My dad started yelling for me to get back to my room. When I looked up at him, he had a shotgun pointed at the very large floor-to-ceiling window and was prepared to blow the window out to shoot whatever was on the deck. That was no bear. As a child remembering this, I thought it was a gorilla, honestly, because in a kid's mind, that was my point of reference. All this happened so fast. No shots were fired because the creature was over the railing up the hill to the ridge so fast it made your head spin. A bear could not have done that either. The railing was fairly flush with the hillside. We used to climb over it all the time to get onto the deck with about a 3-foot drop to the deck. The next day my dad was very agitated. I kept asking what that was, and he was pretty pissed off at me for persisting. He kept saying a bear, but he was on the phone. It was early Saturday morning, talking to friends around the property and in town about what was on the deck the night before. Even he had no idea for sure, but did drop the Sasquatch word. The rest of that day we had his buddies on the property looking for footprints, walking up the ridge from the deck, and driving the roads around us with shotguns. The driving around with guns is pretty typical for late 70s afternoons in Alberta, LOL. People said it was probably a Sasquatch. I'd never heard of this before, and my dad said not to talk about it. My mom said it was kooky to think anything other than a bear. I was kind of made fun of as a kid for sharing the story, so I stopped. As I got older, I thought that these creatures didn't exist in Alberta, so it probably was a bear. As I hear your stories, it brings the memories back, and the people are 1000% correct. Once you see one, there's no going back, even for a young kid who is only turning 8. It was very profound. I wonder about this creature because the house was fairly new in that part of the woods, and it was one of the first times I'd been there, so maybe the sound of little girls running and playing in the woods drew the creature out. We were also throwing rotten chicken eggs at trees further up the ridge as well. We've gotten supreme shit for that too, but maybe that smell along with the laughing drew it out. I have no idea. So that's my story. Share my name if it helps. If I ever saw one again, I would run as fast as I could. Can you pee your pants while you're running? LOL. Thank you for all you do. Cheers, Michelle Matheson. Quote, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit." End quote. Aristotle. Well, that's a good quote. Thanks for that share, Michelle. I'll guarantee you never ever forgot any detail of that experience. Not a chance, right? Not a chance. I think this is a fairly fresh one right here. This one is at the top of the list. Father's and brother's story, and then our story. Please don't... Hey Steve, please don't share my name. I love the stories you share and watch your YouTube channel all the time. Thank you for what you do. I'm the last one left of my family. I've lost both my parents and all my siblings over the past 8 years. I wish I had known so many people had these encounters. I would have asked my dad and brother for more details. My dad and his brothers grew up roaming the woods and swamps of deep Louisiana in the early 30s. One day, they were heading out to go fishing when they ran into a bunch of wild hogs. Since hogs can be vicious, they quickly climbed up the nearest tree. The hogs were under the tree and angry. They had been in the tree a while waiting for the hogs to leave when they heard a low, rumbling, loud growl. They heard something running towards the tree and hogs. They never saw anything, but it scared the hogs into running away. After a bit, they came down the tree and continued on their way. They knew what it was, and they weren't scared of it like they were the hogs. It was almost like it scared the hogs off to protect the boys. He would tell me that the Rougarou were real, the swamp apes, or as he called them, boogaroos, like boogeyman, lived in the swamps. I think the term Rougarou is another name for werewolf, but I'm sure he meant Sasquatch. He passed away 4 years ago at the age of 93. He hunted and fished all his life. We grew up in a small town in West Texas. My brother's 13 years old, older than me, so when I was very young, he was a teenager and would go hunting in the woods around our house. Once, he and a friend were going to walk down the railroad tracks for a couple of miles to a pond they knew of to go duck hunting. When they returned, they were both pretty shook up. He told my parents they had just reached the pond and they heard a lot of noise coming from the woods across the pond. They didn't think there were any cows in that area, so they just decided to watch for a while to see what it was. He said it sounded like something bustling through the woods with limbs breaking and leaves rustling. It sounded big. There were no ducks, and the noise was freaking them out, so they decided to leave. They hadn't gone very far back down the railroad tracks when he heard something behind them and turned to see what he described as a large, hairy monkey creature. He said it was crouched down and hitting the railroad track with a large limb. It threw the limb at them and started throwing rocks at them. Of course, they took off running for home. I don't remember if he mentioned any noise like vocalizations or whoops. I do know that that was the last time they walked to that pond. I've never really thought the area we grew up in would be a Sabi or Bigfoot territory, as we mainly have mesquite, oak, pecan trees that don't get very big. It would be interesting if others in the area had stories to tell. Before long, my brother was drafted and sent to Vietnam. He retired from the military. I never thought to ask him for more details after he grew up. He, like my dad, hunted and fished all his life. Now for our story. This happened a couple years ago at a small lake. I can't remember if it was early spring or late fall, but the trees had lost their leaves and it was a nice sunny day. My husband and I decided to go walk around this lake and look for arrowheads. It is about a 3-mile hike around this lake and well-marked trails and roads. It used to be a popular place for camping and fishing, but it's been closed off to any traffic except walking in ATVs. We had walked about halfway around the lake, and my husband was about 50 yards ahead of me around the bend in the road toward my left. There were two small trees and briars and bushes between us, but I could hear him and knew he was getting to a spot in the road that was kind of a washout area where big slabs of rock were in the road. And all of a sudden, 2 deer came running straight at me. They were coming from behind the trees and looking terrified. When they saw me, they turned slightly to the left and kept going. I yelled at my husband asking if he had seen the deer. He didn't answer. So I went around the bend in the road and he was just standing there, kind of frozen. I asked what was wrong, and he asked me if I had seen what was chasing the deer. I said no. He went on to describe what sounded like a dire wolf to me. I know dire wolves are extinct, right? We know what coyotes look like, and we have both had big dogs all our lives. We live in the country and are familiar with local wildlife as we both grew up hunting and fishing and camping, etc. He said its back was about waist high to him, and he's 5'11", and its hair was black with gray and was matted up. He said it crossed in front of him, maybe 100 yards away, and it was huge. He said that's why the deer ran towards us, because we were not as scary as whatever that thing was. There's a video I've seen on YouTube about a large black wolf thing going after a husky or a shepherd dog. He said that looked about the right size of what he saw. Now we'll add a link to the video at the bottom of this email. Thank you for what you do. I watch you all the time and I love hearing the emails people send in. Sorry. Bravo for this wonderful idea you had. Thank you so much, and I hope you decide to tell my stories. God bless you and your family, and beautiful goats, horses, and fluffy cat. Video link, I hope it works. I think it's titled Huge Wolf Attacks Dog. That's not my video, I just copied it from YouTube. Alright, we'll see if I can look into that. Thanks so much for your email. It's sad for you that your family's gone like that. A dire wolf. It's kind of funny, usually when predators are locked onto their prey, when they're running after them, they will they usually, once they're locked into that absolute pursuit, they just ignore us. It's not too often predators will shy away once they're locked on, going after something. Probably tired hearing things. I thought I heard something twice in the bushes right there, but whatever. I'm going to do one more, I think. And I'm going to carry on. Thank you for the kind words as well. I appreciate that. I better scroll down to the bottom to get somebody who's been waiting for a while. Okay, here's another one. This is titled, Never Heard That Before. Hi Steve, been watching your channel for about a year now. I really like how you share everyone's experience without judgment. Your attitude rocks. I should start off by saying I have camped out and fished most of my life. Never enjoyed campgrounds, too many people, too much noise, so I've always preferred rough camping or spots that only have one campsite. I should also mention that I lived and grew up in Kelowna. My encounter happened in the summer of 98 or 99. My girlfriend and I and our 2 dogs were in the Lassie Lake area in the South Okanagan. The lake we were at was called State Lake, one campsite near the road with about a 10-minute walk down a good trail to the lake. We arrived mid-afternoon, set up the box tent, and I grabbed my belly boat and fly rod to go fishing while my girlfriend finished setting up camp. Anyway, I fished for a couple of hours and I started my way back to camp. On the way back up the trail, I had the feeling of being watched. I stopped, scanned my surroundings, but couldn't see anything. I shrugged it off, got back to camp. After dinner, I figured I'd go fishing again and check out the evening rise. Again on the trail, I had that creepy feeling even while I was fishing. Later back at camp, my girlfriend and I enjoyed a few beers and talked till about 10 or so. We went to bed, fell asleep shortly thereafter. Sometime later, I woke up suddenly with an intense feeling of fear. Every hair seemed to have turned to wire. I lay there listening for a sound that might let me know what it was out there, but it was dead quiet. Neither my girlfriend or the dogs ever changed their breathing, let alone woke up. After what seemed like half an hour or so, it was probably only a few minutes, I heard what sounded like 3 loud and deep exhales. Whatever it was only a few feet from the truck. A couple minutes later, the feeling of fear went away, and I managed to fall asleep sometime later. I woke up at daylight, walked all around the campsite and up and down the road, but could not find a sign of anything. After breakfast, we packed up, moved to a different lake a couple miles down the road. The rest of the weekend was uneventful. I live in Chilliwack now and have only had a couple of times out exploring around Harrison and Chilliwack Lake, but I felt uncomfortable. When that happens, I just move on. Like you say, it is what it is. Anyway, thanks for all you do and keep up the good work. Count on me as one of your soldiers. I'm 64 now, but I can still kick ass when I have to. Right on, man. You can use my name. I don't care what anyone thinks. Stan Moore. Stan, appreciate it, man. It's always good to know there's another soldier in the Army, too. I'll tell you what, especially these days. Yeah, head over to Chilliwack Lake. Go snoop around the head of that thing. If you want to go see some area where we've had a whole pile of encounters emailed in to us. All right. That's enough. That's enough for me, man. Today, I got up 4:30. I'm beat. I'm done. I gotta get home. I got an hour to go to get home. I was gonna go the other way, stay at my buddy's fishing lodge and visit, but I'm just too tired. Maybe tomorrow I'll go somewhere cool. Do a little more snooping, exploring around the new zone, around the home, and then and see what else I can dig up to share with all you, get more voices heard, and also more importantly, I want to get home and see what's in the inbox from some contacts I have around the globe. They've been feeding me some pretty interesting knowledge lately. Big timber across the lake. I always wonder what's in that big timber. Right in the middle. Right up there. That's the stuff that I like to get into. I like to go about halfway up a mountain like that and get in that big timber deep in it. It's usually where you find all the wildlife. Pretty steep up there, no roads to get there. I'd probably paddle across the lake and then hike up. Anyway, time to go. Time to go home. I'll be back with more soon, all right?